What if I told you there are SUVs out there that mechanics actually hate to see coming? Not because they're nightmares to fix, but because they never need fixing. While your neighbor's rolling the dice on their third transmission replacement, these 5 legendary SUVs just keep going and going and going. We're talking 300,000 miles like it's nothing, bulletproof engines that laugh at age, and resale values that refuse to drop. Forget planned obsolescence. These machines were built by engineers who clearly had a personal vendetta against tow trucks. Today, I'm counting down 5 SUVs that you'll buy once and your grandkids will inherit. Let's get into it.
All right, let's kick this off with a vehicle that's basically the cockroach of the automotive world, and I mean that as the highest compliment possible, the Toyota RAV4. Now, before you click away thinking, oh great, another boring Toyota video, hear me out, because this thing has a secret weapon that's been hiding in plain sight for decades. Here's the thing nobody talks about. The RAV4 isn't just reliable, it's aggressively reliable. Like, it refuses to die even when you actively neglect it. There are documented cases of RAV4s running on oil that looks like chocolate pudding, air filters clogged with what can only be described as small ecosystems, and timing belts that should have been replaced during the Bush administration. Yet somehow, they just keep firing up every single morning like nothing happened. The magic starts under the hood. Most RAV4s come equipped with Toyota's legendary 2.5-liter 4-cylinder. And when I say legendary, I'm not exaggerating. This motor has fewer moving parts than most modern engines, which means fewer things can go wrong. Toyota engineered this power plant with tolerances so tight and materials so robust that it essentially entered the market already broken in. The transmission, whether you've got the 8-speed automatic or the older 6-speed, these gearboxes are built like bank vaults. They're not exciting, they're not particularly sporty, but they will outlast your mortgage. Now here's where it gets really interesting. The RAV4's reliability isn't just about the engine and transmission. Toyota uses a philosophy called over-engineering the boring bits. While other manufacturers are cutting costs on suspension bushings, wheel bearings, and alternators, Toyota specs these components like they're preparing for the apocalypse. That little alternator, rated for way more amperage than the vehicle actually needs. Those brake calipers, massively overbuilt. It's like they designed every component expecting you to tow a boat through the Sahara Desert twice. And let's talk about rust protection, because this is where the RAV4 separates itself from the pretenders. We've all seen SUVs from other brands that start developing cancer around the wheel arches after 5 winters. The RAV4? Toyota galvanizes the frame and uses a multi-stage rust protection process that would make a submarine jealous. I've personally seen 20-year-old RAV4s in the Midwest where they salt the roads like they're seasoning a steak, still looking solid underneath. But here's my favorite party trick about this SUV. Open the hood of a RAV4 with 200,000 miles on it, and then open the hood of one with 20,000 miles. I'll give you 5 seconds to tell me which is which. You can't, can you? That's because these engines wear like iron. The valve train stays quiet, the timing chain keeps its tension, and the engine mounts barely sag. It's automotive sorcery. The hybrid models? Oh man, don't even get me started. Actually, do get me started because these things are ridiculous. Toyota's hybrid system has been refined over 2 decades across millions of vehicles. That battery pack? Warranted for 10 years in most places, but routinely lasting 15 or 20. The electric motors are sealed units with 0 maintenance requirements. No oil changes, no belt replacements, nothing. They just work. And when you're getting north of 35 mpgs in a vehicle this practical, you're basically printing money. Speaking of practical, the RAV4 holds its value like it's made of gold-pressed latinum. Check any used car market right now. A 5-year-old RAV4 with reasonable mileage still commands 60 to 70% of its original price. Some limited editions and TRD models barely depreciate at all. Why? Because everyone knows what you're getting. It's not a gamble, it's not a risk, it's a sure thing. Buyers line up for used RAV4s like they're concert tickets. Now, I'll be honest with you, the RAV4 isn't going to set your heart on fire. It won't make you giggle going through corners, and it's not going to win any drag races. But you know what?
When everyone else is scrolling through their mechanic's number on speed dial, you'll be the one smiling at every oil change when your technician says, "Yep, everything still looks perfect." The RAV4 is the friend who shows up on time, helps you move, and never complains. Boring, maybe, but boring becomes beautiful when everything else around you is breaking down. So if you want an SUV that treats 100,000 miles like a warm-up lap and 300,000 miles like it's just hitting its stride, the RAV4 isn't just a smart choice, it's the obvious choice. Your future self will thank you. Trust me on this one. But wait, because while the RAV4 is playing the long game with reliability, our next vehicle took a completely different approach to immortality.
Enter the Subaru Forester, and buckle up because this is where things get weird in the best possible way. If the RAV4 is the reliable friend who shows up on time, the Forester is that friend who shows up on time in a snowstorm at 3 in the morning and then helps you move a couch up 4 flights of stairs without breaking a sweat. This thing is built different, and I mean that literally. Let's address the elephant in the room, or should I say, the horizontally opposed boxer engine under the hood. Most people hear Subaru and immediately think head gasket problems. And look, I'm not gonna lie to you, the older models from the early 2000s had some issues. But here's what nobody mentions. Subaru actually fixed that problem over a decade ago, and now we're left with one of the most brilliantly engineered powertrains in the business. That flat-4 engine sits so low in the chassis that the Forester's center of gravity is basically underground. This isn't just good for handling, it's a masterclass in physics, making your vehicle more stable and less likely to roll over when you're avoiding that deer at midnight. The boxer engine does something else that's absolutely genius. Because the pistons move horizontally instead of vertically, the engine naturally balances itself. There's less vibration, less wear on engine mounts, and less stress on literally every component. It's like Subaru looked at 100 years of traditional engine design and said, yeah, but what if we did it sideways? And somehow that actually worked. These engines run so smooth that at idle, you can balance a coin on the valve cover. Try that with your neighbor's V6 and watch it vibrate across the parking lot. Now let's talk about the secret sauce that makes the Forester genuinely unstoppable. Symmetrical all-wheel drive. And before you roll your eyes thinking all AWD systems are the same, let me stop you right there. Most SUVs use part-time or reactive all-wheel drive systems, meaning the vehicle is front-wheel drive until it detects slip. Then it scrambles to send power to the rear wheels. It's like calling the fire department after your house is already burning. Subaru said absolutely not, and engineered a full-time symmetrical system that sends power to all 4 wheels constantly, every single moment you're driving. Rain, snow, gravel, mud, or that sketchy wet grass at your kid's soccer game. The Forester just grips and goes. Here's where it gets really interesting for the longevity conversation. Subaru builds these AWD systems with a level of redundancy that borders on paranoia. The differentials are overbuilt, the CV joints are sealed tighter than Fort Knox, and the drive shafts are designed to handle way more torque than the engine actually produces. I've talked to Subaru technicians who've told me they've seen Foresters with 250,000 miles roll in for their first CV boot replacement. Not a CV joint failure, just a rubber boot. That's almost unheard of in the AWD world. The transmission deserves its own award for stubbornness. Whether you've got the continuously variable transmission or the older traditional automatic, these gearboxes are built like they expect you to tow a house through the Rockies every weekend. Subaru learned their lesson early on about reliability, and now they engineer every component assuming you're going to use this vehicle hard. That CVT everyone loves to hate? Subaru's version is actually one of the most durable on the market because they don't push it to extremes for performance. They tune it for longevity, and it shows. Regular fluid changes, and these transmissions will outlive most relationships. But here's my absolute favorite thing about the Forester, and this is something you won't find in any spec sheet: the community. Subaru owners keep their vehicles longer than almost any other brand, and there's a reason for that. These things create loyalty not through flashy marketing, but through the simple act of never letting you down. I've met Forester owners who've driven through absolute hell. Mountain passes in blizzards, unmaintained logging roads, flood zones after hurricanes, and the vehicle just keeps asking for more.
There's something deeply reassuring about driving an SUV that feels like it was designed by people who actually understood what all-terrain really means. The interior might not win any luxury awards, and the infotainment system is about as exciting as reading the phone book. But you know what? When you're on year 12 of ownership and everything still works exactly as it did on day one, you stop caring about whether the cup holders have ambient lighting. The seats are comfortable, the visibility is phenomenal thanks to that boxy design, and the cargo space is intelligently laid out. Subaru focused on making a vehicle that works, not a vehicle that impresses people at stoplights. And let's talk about safety for just a second, because this is where Subaru went absolutely overboard in the best possible way. The Forester has earned top safety ratings year after year, not just because of airbags and crumple zones, but because the entire structure is engineered like a roll cage. That boxer engine we talked about? In a frontal collision, it drops down and under the cabin instead of being pushed into your legs. The roof pillars are reinforced to the point where the Forester can support multiple times its own weight. Subaru builds these like they expect you to survive anything, and statistically, you probably will. Resale value? The Forester holds its worth almost as stubbornly as it holds the road. Check any used market, and you'll find 5-year-old Foresters selling for prices that make other brands weep. Why? Because buyers know they're not inheriting someone else's problems. They're inheriting a vehicle that's just getting started. The Forester doesn't have a peak mileage, it has a mileage suggestion that it routinely ignores. So if you want an SUV that'll take you anywhere, survive anything, and still be running when the sun expands into a red giant, the Forester isn't just reliable, it's relentless. This is the vehicle you buy when you're done gambling with car payments and just want something that works. Forever. Now, if you thought Subaru's engineering was impressive, wait until you see what happens when a luxury brand decides reliability is actually cool again.
Alright, time to talk about the vehicle that refuses to quit even though the manufacturer basically gave up on it. The Mitsubishi Montero, or the Pajero if you're anywhere outside North America, because apparently Mitsubishi discovered that name doesn't translate well everywhere. This is the SUV that aid workers drive through war zones, that explorers take to places where the nearest mechanic is 3 countries away, and that somehow outlives vehicles that cost 3 times as much. If you've never heard of it, that's exactly why it's so good. Here's the thing about the Montero that nobody tells you. This vehicle was designed with a single-minded purpose that modern SUVs have completely forgotten. It wasn't built to look tough in a mall parking lot or to impress your neighbors. It was engineered to survive the Dakar Rally, literally one of the most punishing motorsports events on Earth, and then Mitsubishi just sold that same basic formula to regular people. We're talking about an SUV that won the Dakar Rally 12 times. 12! That's not a typo. When you buy a Montero, you're essentially getting rally-proven engineering disguised as a family hauler. The heart of this beast is something special. Depending on the year, you're looking at either a 3.0-liter V6 or the legendary 3.8-liter V6, and both of these engines are built like they expect you to drive to the moon and back. Mitsubishi didn't mess around with fancy variable valve timing or complicated turbochargers that fail after the warranty expires. They went old school. Cast iron blocks, simple overhead cam designs, and components engineered with tolerances so conservative that these motors basically idle at half their potential stress load. It's automotive overkill in the best possible way. I've personally seen Monteros with over 400,000 miles still running on their original engines without any major rebuilds. The oil pan might be dented from rocks, the paint might be sunburned into oblivion, but that engine? Still purring like it's got something to prove. Now let's talk about the transmission, because this is where Mitsubishi showed they understood something fundamental about durability. That 4-speed automatic might seem laughably outdated compared to modern 10-speed gearboxes, but here's the secret. Fewer gears means fewer things that can break. Each gear is massively overbuilt. The torque converter is the size of a dinner plate, and the whole assembly is cooled like it's expecting you to tow a battleship through the Sahara. Transmission shops love the Montero because they almost never see them. It's terrible for business, but amazing for owners. But here's where the Montero separates itself from every soft roader pretending to be capable.
the Super Select 4WD system. This isn't your typical push-button all-wheel drive that's really just front-wheel drive with good marketing. This is a legitimate mechanical locking four-wheel drive system that you can engage at highway speeds. You've got two-wheel drive for normal driving, four-wheel drive for sketchy conditions, and then, and this is the party piece, a locked center differential mode for when things get properly apocalyptic. I'm talking about the kind of terrain where other SUVs are already calling for a tow truck, while the Montero is still asking, is that all you got? The ground clearance is generous, the approach and departure angles are legitimately impressive, and the chassis is built on a proper ladder frame that can handle serious abuse. Speaking of that frame, let's address the elephant in the room. The Montero is body-on-frame construction, which is basically extinct in the modern SUV world because it's heavy, it's old-fashioned, and it's not great for fuel economy. But you know what it is great for? Never dying. That frame is the skeleton that everything bolts to, and it's constructed from steel thick enough that rust takes decades instead of years to cause any real problems. I've crawled under 20-year-old Monteros and found frames that look like they just left the factory. Meanwhile, unibody crossovers from the same era are dissolving like sugar cubes in coffee. The interior is where the Montero shows its age, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This thing was designed in an era when premium meant has cup holders. The plastics are hard, the infotainment is hilariously outdated, and the sound system sounds like you're listening to music through a tin can. But here's what it does have. Space. Glorious, cavernous space. 3 rows of actual seating where adults can sit without needing a chiropractor afterward. Cargo room that swallows camping gear, lumber, or small furniture without complaint. And everything is built with this utilitarian robustness that means switches still click satisfyingly after 2 decades, and nothing squeaks or rattles even after you've driven through terrain that would shake a normal SUV apart. Here's my favorite part about Montero ownership, and this is something you'll only understand after you've owned one. Parts availability is shockingly good. Because these vehicles were sold globally and built in massive numbers for commercial and military use, you can find parts almost anywhere. And when I say anywhere, I mean I've heard stories of Montero owners getting their vehicles repaired in rural Africa, remote parts of South America, and tiny villages in Southeast Asia. Try doing that with your modern luxury SUV that requires a software update to change the oil. The depreciation curve on the Montero is fascinating because it basically doesn't exist anymore. These vehicles dropped in value during their first 5 years like everything else, but then something magical happened. They hit a floor and just stopped. Now, low-mileage examples are actually appreciating because people have figured out the secret. These things are indestructible, they're no longer being made, and everyone who owns one refuses to sell. It's become the worst-kept secret in the off-road community. So if you want an SUV that was literally engineered to win desert races, that treats normal roads like a vacation, and that'll still be running when archaeologists dig it up in 1,000 years, the Montero isn't just reliable, it's legendary. This is the vehicle you buy when you're done with modern conveniences and just want something that works everywhere, forever, no excuses. But if you think rally-bred toughness is impressive, wait until you hear about the SUV that's basically a tank with cup holders.
Let me tell you about the Honda CR-V, the SUV equivalent of that one kid in school who got straight A's, played 3 sports, volunteered on weekends, and somehow still managed to be genuinely likable. This thing doesn't just work, it works so consistently and so effortlessly that it makes reliability look easy. While other manufacturers are out here treating 100,000 miles like it's a finish line, the CR-V treats it like a warm-up lap before the real journey begins. Now, I know what you're thinking. It's a Honda, of course it's reliable. But here's what most people miss. The CR-V isn't just benefiting from Honda's reputation, it's actively building it. This vehicle is the reason mechanics recommend Honda in the first place. I've talked to technicians who've worked on CR-Vs with 300,000 miles that still have the original clutch packs in the transmission, original catalytic converters, and engine internals that look like they were installed last month. It's not luck, it's deliberate, almost obsessive engineering. The engine is where Honda's decades of racing experience quietly show up to work every single day. That K-Series 4-cylinder engine, whether it's the 2.4-liter or the newer turbocharged variants, is a masterpiece of simplicity meeting sophistication. Honda figured out something brilliant. Instead of chasing horsepower numbers that look good in advertisements, they focused on building an engine that runs at a comfortable cruising point under almost any condition. The compression ratios are conservative, the cooling system is over-engineered, and the oil passages are designed like a cardiovascular surgeon planned them. Result? These engines run cool, stay clean internally, and basically refuse to wear out. I've seen CR-V engines that still show factory crosshatch patterns on the cylinder walls after 200,000 miles. That's not maintenance, that's sorcery. But here's where it gets really interesting, and this is something Honda doesn't advertise nearly enough. The CR-V's transmission is an absolute tank. Whether you've got the 5-speed automatic from the earlier generations or the CVT from the newer models, these gearboxes are built with a paranoia that borders on beautiful. Honda learned from every single transmission failure across their entire lineup and then engineered the CR-V's transmission like they were preparing for Judgment Day. The fluid passages are massive, the cooling is redundant, and the internal components are spec'd for torque loads way beyond what the engine can actually produce. Transmission shops actually complain about the CR-V because it's terrible for business. These things just don't break. Now, let's talk about something nobody appreciates until it saves them thousands of dollars: Honda's approach to all-wheel drive. The CR-V's real-time AWD system is brilliantly simple, and simplicity is reliability's best friend. It's a reactive system, sure, but it's engineered with exactly one job: get you through weather and light off-road situations without drama. There's no complicated multi-clutch setup, no fancy torque vectoring that requires a PhD to diagnose, just a simple hydraulic pump and a rear differential that engages when needed. You know what fails on this system? Almost nothing. The fluid lasts forever, the pump is bulletproof, and the whole assembly weighs less and costs less to maintain than competitors' fancy electronic setups that fail the moment the warranty expires. Here's my absolute favorite thing about the CR-V, and this is where Honda's genius really shines. They designed this vehicle assuming you're not a car person. Everything is accessible, everything is logical, and everything is built to survive neglect. The air filter is right there when you pop the hood, no tools required. The engine oil dipstick is bright yellow and labeled like they expect you to actually check it. The cabin air filter is behind the glove box and takes 30 seconds to replace. Honda engineered the CR-V for people who view cars as appliances, and then they built it tough enough that even when those people ignore basic maintenance, the vehicle still refuses to die. It's the automotive equivalent of a golden retriever, endlessly forgiving and always happy to see you.
Plot twist: the Hyundai Santa Fe. Yeah, I know. Half of you just did a double take, and the other half are already typing angry comments. But hear me out, because this is where the story gets really interesting. 20 years ago, if you told me a Hyundai would make a list of the most reliable SUVs on the planet, I would have laughed you out of the room. But here's the thing. Hyundai pulled off one of the greatest redemption arcs in automotive history, and the Santa Fe is the proof. Let's rewind for a second. In the late 90s and early 2000s, Hyundai's reputation was basically cheap car that breaks if you look at it wrong. Their vehicles were affordable for a reason, and that reason was that they fell apart. But then something extraordinary happened. Hyundai didn't just try to improve, they went absolutely nuclear on quality control. They hired engineers away from Toyota and Honda, they invested billions in R&D, and then they did something almost unprecedented. They backed it all up with a 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty. That wasn't confidence, that was a declaration of war on their own bad reputation. The modern Santa Fe is the result of that obsession with redemption, and it shows in ways that'll make you question everything you thought you knew. That engine sitting under the hood, whether it's the 2.5-liter turbo 4-cylinder or the available V6, is built to standards that would make Japanese manufacturers nervous. Hyundai studied every engine failure from every competitor, documented every weak point, and then engineered around all of them. The blocks are overbuilt, the head gaskets are multi-layer steel, the timing chains are industrial grade, and the oiling system is designed like they expect you to ignore every service interval. These engines are stress-tested beyond anything reasonable. I'm talking about running at full throttle for hundreds of hours straight,
extreme temperature cycling, and contamination tests that would destroy lesser motors. The result? Santa Fe's routinely sailing past 200,000 miles without even a hiccup. But here's where Hyundai really flexed: the transmission. That 8-speed automatic is not some in-house experiment. It's co-developed with serious transmission specialists, and it's built like a Swiss watch made of titanium. The shift logic is smooth, the gear ratios are perfectly spaced, and the internal components are spec'd for abuse. Hyundai learned from everyone else's mistakes, which means this transmission doesn't have the weak clutch packs that plagued early dual clutches, doesn't have the fragile belt systems that kill some CVTs, and doesn't have the complicated mechatronics that turn German transmissions into bank account draining nightmares. It's just solid, proven technology executed flawlessly. Now let's address the suspension and chassis, because this is where you really see Hyundai's transformation. The Santa Fe rides on a platform that's shared with the Kia Telluride, which by the way has won basically every award in existence, and this platform is engineered with a sophistication that puts some luxury brands to shame. The suspension components are sealed and protected like Hyundai expects you to drive through a salt mine. The subframe bushings are constructed from materials that don't deteriorate. The ball joints are built for ridiculous load capacities, and the steering rack is isolated from road shock in ways that prevent the wear patterns that plague other brands. I've personally inspected Santa Fe's with 150,000 miles that still feel tight and composed, with no clunks, no squeaks, nothing. That's not luck, that's engineering discipline. Here's something that doesn't get enough attention. Hyundai's approach to rust protection is borderline paranoid. They use galvanized steel in places where competitors are still using bare metal and prayers. The undercarriage is treated with protective coatings that actually stick around, and the drainage points are designed by people who understand that water is the enemy. I've seen Santa Fe's from harsh winter climates that still have clean frames after a decade of salt exposure. Meanwhile, some premium brands are developing cancer after 5 winters. Hyundai is not messing around. The interior quality is where the Santa Fe really throws down the gauntlet. This isn't some budget cabin with hard plastics and regret. This is legitimately nice. The materials are soft where they need to be, the fit and finish is tight enough to make German engineers nod approvingly, and everything feels substantial. But more importantly, it's all designed to last. The buttons don't go mushy, the leather doesn't crack, the stitching doesn't unravel, and the technology doesn't become obsolete after 2 years. Hyundai built this interior assuming you're going to be living in it for the next 15 years, and they made sure you wouldn't hate it by year 3. Let's talk about features for a second, because this is where Hyundai really embarrasses the competition. The Santa Fe comes loaded with technology that other brands charge thousands extra for: adaptive cruise control, blind spot monitoring, lane keeping assist, heated and ventilated seats, panoramic sunroof, premium audio systems, and here's the kicker: it all works and it keeps working. There's no mysterious electrical gremlins, no infotainment systems that freeze and require hard resets, no sensors that fail and cost a fortune to replace. Hyundai didn't just add features to inflate the spec sheet, they engineered them to survive. Now the big question: value. The Santa Fe doesn't just compete on reliability, it absolutely destroys on value. You're getting Honda CR-V levels of dependability with more features, more space, more warranty, and a price tag that's often thousands less. The resale value has been climbing year after year as people figure out that these things actually last, and now used Santa Fe's are holding their worth in ways that would have been unthinkable a decade ago. The market is catching on, and prices are reflecting the reality that this is a legitimate, no-excuses, reliable SUV. Here's my favorite part about the Santa Fe ownership experience: that warranty. 10 years or 100,000 miles on the powertrain is industry-leading, and Hyundai actually honors it. They're not trying to weasel out of coverage with fine print or questionable denials. They built these vehicles to last, and they're confident enough to put their money where their mouth is. That peace of mind is worth its weight in gold, especially when you're making a 6-year car payment and praying nothing expensive breaks. So if you want an SUV that represents the ultimate underdog story, that combines cutting-edge features with old-school reliability, that'll surprise mechanics who still think it's 2005, and that treats 200,000 miles like it's just hitting its stride, the Santa Fe
isn't just reliable, it's the proof that anyone can change, evolve, and become excellent. This is the vehicle you buy when you're smart enough to judge products by what they are today, not what their reputation was yesterday.
And there you have it, 5 SUVs that laugh in the face of planned obsolescence and refuse to die no matter how hard you ignore them. From the Toyota RAV4's boring brilliance to the Subaru Forester's all-terrain stubbornness, the Mitsubishi Montero's rally-bred invincibility, the Honda CR-V's appliance-like perfection, and the Hyundai Santa Fe's redemption arc for the ages, these are the vehicles that you buy once and drive forever. Here's the real takeaway. Reliability isn't about luck or hoping you got a good one off the assembly line. It's about engineering philosophy, build quality, and manufacturers who actually care about their reputation beyond the first 3 years. These 5 SUVs represent the absolute best of what's possible when automakers decide that longevity matters. So if you found this video helpful, do me a favor, smash that like button because it tells YouTube to share this with people who are tired of endless car payments and expensive repairs. Subscribe to the channel if you want more honest automotive content without the BS. And drop a comment below telling me which of these 5 you choose, or if I missed an indestructible SUV that deserves to be on this list. I read every single comment, and your feedback shapes what videos I make next. And hey, if you're actually in the market for one of these legends, take your time, do your research, get a pre-purchase inspection, and remember, the best SUV is the one that's still running when everything else has been towed to the junkyard. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.